Ladies and gentlemen, what a treat we have in store here on the Sports Report, the #1 global sports show. And our guest here has really caught our attention because he's one of the hottest young professional wrestlers right now in the UK. He's had a lot of success in a short amount of time, most notably for Target Pro Wrestling. And he's really established himself as a name that you are going to watch in the professional wrestling scene, especially in the UK, for years to come. And he's arguably one of the hottest professional wrestling free agents out there on the market. So we're extremely excited about this one. We've gotten to watch his work, most notably in Target Pro Wrestling. He's established himself, and listen, Rey Mysterio, Daniel Bryan, CM Punk, move on over. Darby Allin, move on over, because he's coming your way. He's taking names, and without further ado, here on the Sports Report, the #1 global sports show, my friend, welcome aboard.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Honestly, I watched a few of your other episodes on this, and people always mention the intro. And honestly, I feel like I could chop through a mountain after hearing that. Honestly, I should get you over to Target, and you should do all of my announcing for when I come out to the ring. I think we'll get something going there.
Listen, I would love to. I mean, if the promoters can book my fee and book my flight, and they can get me in there, I mean, absolutely. Listen, I think at this point, Owen, I've got about 20 wrestlers requested, maybe about 5 or 6 boxers request to actually do their introductions for them. So I've lost a scorecard at this point on how many people have said to me, "Can you do my intro? Can you do my introduction for me?" So I think at this point, people listen to the Sports Report on Sport and Area. I think they listen for one reason only. It's for those introductions. So we've accomplished something in life. But obviously, Owen, it is a tremendous honor to speak with you. I have wanted to have you on here for a couple of weeks because you've really caught my eye as somebody that I think is going to go a long way in professional wrestling, especially in the UK.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Oh, absolutely, my friend. Anytime. Very excited to see what the future brings with you. But for our worldwide audience listening here on Sport and Area, talk to us about the wrestler, the type of wrestler that one can expect when Owen Michaels returns to the ring later this year in 2021.
I'll tell you right now, Owen Michaels, when he returns, whenever shows do come back, that is. Obviously, we're still going on hope here at the moment. Obviously, things are turning back to normality at the moment in the UK. The gyms are opening, feeling a bit good. But when Owen Michaels gets back to wrestling, he's going to be a completely different character. I can guarantee you that, because I've been itching to get back in the ring right now. Honestly, you don't know it. Honestly, I'm feeling motivated right now as I speak to you, Mr. Bryce. Honestly, it's going to be so good. You know when you get motivated, Mr. Bryce, when you just feel that urge in your body and you just want to let loose. Honestly, I can't wait to get back in the ring, and it's going to be a treat for everyone watching. I can guarantee you that. And the fact that I'm on this show with you right now, Mr. Bryce, is not just a treat for myself, but a treat for everyone there, because this is the first step in the legacy of Owen Michaels. I'm sure you would agree yourself, would you?
Oh, and I'm motivated right now. Listen, I'm motivated that you're motivated that you're on this show, and I'm motivated that you're actually thinking about getting to the ring, continuing your legacy, and the Sports Report is a part of it. And I almost got to feel like, Owen, you're probably in the ring right now training. For all I know, you're probably lifting weights. You're on the exercise bike while you're
I'm lifting weights. Don't you worry. The training hasn't got back just yet, but I'm in the gym every day. I'm ready for it.
I feel like right now I'm speaking with a different Owen Michaels than the one we saw last in the ring before the pandemic, with the energy and the excitement. And there's something different right now about you. And I feel it by following your social media. I following it by seeing all the different things that you're doing and you're posting about. I mean, do you feel like it's a different, new and improved Owen Michaels right now?
It's an Owen Michaels who's on a mission, Mr. Bryce, because being in lockdown, it's obviously not been easy for anyone, and myself included, because the thing that we love the most, it's been taken away from us. And now I feel like I'm making up for lost time. You know what I mean? I need to get it all out there. I need to show what everyone has missed through these past year and a half of lockdown. We haven't been able to have that outlet to express ourselves as wrestlers, and now it's building up to the point where it's going to explode, Mr. Bright. And honestly, I can't wait. I really can't wait, sir.
I can't wait to see you back in the ring because we really only got a small taste of Owen Michaels and who he is in the ring. And do you feel that way also? Because I feel like, honestly, there's some wrestlers that we've had on the show here over the past few months, and they have a body of work. And you could point back and say, hey, you did this, you did that. But I feel like we haven't even scratched the surface with you because you're somebody, again, and we mentioned at the top, that I see a lot of similarities with a CM Punk with you, a Darby Allin, a Rey Mysterio, a Shawn Michaels even. I mean, no pun intended. Michaels is the last name. You guys are probably related, I'm sure. But do you feel that way as well, that we've really only scratched the surface with the kind of wrestler that Owen Michaels is?
100%, Mr. Bryce. And I thank you for the comparisons. And yeah, we've only really just scratched the surface. And it's really something that it really gets at me, because I feel like just before the pandemic hit, Owen Michaels was really getting to another level. And then whatever, was it God? I don't know who started this pandemic, whatever happened, but he seems to have an agenda against Owen Michaels because he knew what was going to happen. He knew I was going to get to the very top of British wrestling, and then he just had to stop it. But no one can deny Owen Michaels, and eventually everyone's going to see what I'm all about, Mr. Bryce.
I don't think it was God that stopped Owen Michaels. I think it was Satan, because clearly the devil had this.
I completely agree.
I think it was the devil that had this in mind, because the fact that we're now almost 15 months later still talking about a pandemic, I mean, listen, who would have guessed? I mean, they said here back in America, 30 days. First it was 15 days, then it was 30 days to flatten the curve, and yet here we are, and it's almost 15 months later, and we're still talking about this. Obviously, thankfully, we think we're on the verge of getting out of this, but it has been a very, very long process, to say the least. But you said something else that I want to go back and ask you, in that you said that it's been a while, and that does it feel like maybe if everybody, and not just you, maybe took this for granted? Because you think about it, right? We all just thought, hey, we could do whatever we want, and we had all these opportunities. But in a way, I kind of feel like the pandemic maybe made you think about what you had and how good it was. And you didn't realize how good it was until it was gone. I mean, was it ever something that you took for granted, your ability to be in the ring and do those things? I mean, talk to me about that.
I completely agree. And I think it goes without saying for many parts of life where when you have something, you don't appreciate it until it's gone. And wrestling was 100% that, because I could go out into the ring, I could put on a show for the fans, but at the time, you don't really necessarily understand how good it is when you're in the moment until it's been stripped away from you. And I think going back, when shows are finally returning in the UK, I think everyone, myself included, I think we're going to really realise what we have when we finally get back, because it's not going to be a case where it's going to be different. I really don't know how to explain it in a sense where beforehand, we never had it taken away from us. We always had that outlet. It didn't matter if you had a bad match, a good match, you could always go next week and then put on a different match. But now we can't have that outlet. We can't express ourselves how we used to. And now when we finally get back, it's going to be a completely different animal for everyone, in my personal opinion.
I completely agree with you. And we've gotten that same sense here over the past 2 or 3 months on the Sports Report. And again, talking with various wrestlers here in the UK, and we feel the same way. I almost feel like, Owen, and talk to me about your thoughts on this, because I almost feel like it's going to be how the fans watched WrestleMania 37, where you were watching something and you watched it a little differently because it was the first time you got to see a large audience. Now, I know that AEW has had fans, and we interviewed a wrestler a few weeks ago who's with a company here in the States, and they have a small audience. And there was another wrestler that we interviewed at the top of the year, kicking things off for us, and he was a part of an event on Fight TV. It had about 200 or 300 people, and believe it or not, it was sold out. So depending where you are in the States, there are fans. There are fans that have attended, and it's a large number, somewhat compared to most around the world. But for all intents and purposes, WrestleMania 37 was that first big event of a large gathering. For you and others, when you guys get back in the ring, is that going to be your WrestleMania 37, that first time you step foot in the ring?
You took the words right out of my mouth. I think as soon as these shows come back, no matter how big the promotion's going to be, it's going to feel like WrestleMania for quite a long time, because fans are just going to enjoy the experience getting back there and being able to just watch their favorite wrestlers, no matter where, no matter if it's at Target Wrestling or, say, a bigger promotion like Progress. It's going to feel different. There's going to be a different energy about it. And it is, like you said, it's going to be like a WrestleMania for everyone. And really, it's like I said earlier, it's getting to that point where it's just going to burst. And then as soon as people get back, energy is going to come out. The fans are going to love it. And I honestly cannot wait for my own personal WrestleMania entrance as soon as I come out.
And we can't wait, my friend. And speaking of music and entrances, and you took the words right out of my mouth, literally, is that your entrance music, I mean, it's as flashy as anybody's I've seen. And listen, like I said, we've talked with a lot of wrestlers now at this point here on Sportinarium, and I would even go venture to say that it's even more flashier than some of the boxing entrances that we've dealt with and some of the different boxers that have come on the show here over the past several months. I mean, you got to talk to us about how did the entrance music come about?
Wow, my entrance music, that's the thing. Well, the music itself is an instrumental version of Are You Mine by the Arctic Monkeys. And really, I felt it just fit Owen Michaels, really. It has that catchy rhythm to it that just fits with the way I come to the ring and the energy that I give out personally. And I think it fits Owen Michaels pretty well. Wouldn't you agree, Mr. Bryce?
I absolutely agree. And that's why we call you the Heartbreak Kid / the King of Hearts, Owen Michaels. And that's why we're
well, there we go.
This is why, ladies and gentlemen, we're extremely excited to be talking with the Heartbreak Kid / the King of Hearts, Mr. Owen Michaels, who in a short amount of time has already shown himself to be one of the most exciting wrestlers around here in the UK. I am America's greatest export, the host of the Sports Report, the Reverend Tom Bryce, and we are here talking all things related to the career of Owen Michaels, one of the hottest free agents around in professional wrestling, especially here in the UK. And Owen, after talking with you here for a little bit and getting a taste of just who Owen Michaels is, what got you into wrestling?
Well, I think it's the same as everyone. I think most wrestlers, they see it at a young age, and you have that moment in life where you either stray away from it or you're hooked for life. And Owen Michaels was hooked for life. And I'd say it's the same. You grow up, you watch it, you eventually get a trampoline in your back garden and you start practicing moves with your cousin or your siblings, and then you eventually find a wrestling school. And personally, I was lucky enough to find one in my hometown. I know certain people that have to travel hours away from their homes to find a training school, but Owen Michaels, he has one in his hometown of Carlisle, Cumbria, and I was lucky enough to find one. And yeah, that's just how it happens. It's a very quick, well, it happens over years, but it feels like a quick process, in my personal opinion. It happens like a click of the fingers.
Absolutely. And we could see with a snap and a click of the fingers why you've become such a successful wrestler in a short amount of time. And obviously, we've gotten to speak with somebody else who's also from Cumbria, and that's the Cumbrian outlaw, Rick Marcus. So for our worldwide audience listening here on Sportinarium, you got to talk to us also about what it is like in Carlisle, Cumbria, for those who don't know what it's like out there. And talk to me about growing up in Carlisle, Cumbria.
Feel very fortunate, actually, growing up in Carlisle, Cumbria. Now, I understand not many people actually know where it is. And personally, even people in the south of England don't even know where it is. Half of the people in the south of England think we're in Scotland. And I personally do not like that. However, it's a quiet place, but it has everything you need. It's nothing much happens, but I like that. I don't like having to deal with all these big things happening around the world. And Carlisle, Cumbria is a safe place where, you can grow up without any trouble. And personally, I love that. I love growing up in Carlisle, Cumbria. I see myself here, living here for a very long time. And I don't think I'll ever stray away from Carlisle. I know people that they want to move away to bigger cities and stuff like that. And obviously, when Owen Michaels becomes a big famous wrestler, he'll have to move away eventually. But I'll always have a home here in Carlisle.
Listen, the Heartbreak Kid / the King of Hearts, you will have to, when you eventually get signed by the WWE, I'm sure you're going to have to, like every other professional wrestler at this point, live in Tampa,
of course,
Florida.
Of course.
I lost count on how many wrestlers now live in Tampa, Florida. Is it because of the weather? It's because of the airport? I heard a wrestler once say, actually, that one of the reasons that so many wrestlers live in Florida is because of its access to the airport. I mean, I don't understand why that's important, but what do I know? I'm only from Brooklyn, New York, who lives in New York City. So what do I know? I've been on an airplane once in my life, and the one time I flew, it was the plane couldn't land for 3 hours. And since that moment, I'm terrified to fly. So what the hell do I know about
Mr. Bryce, I can beat you there. I've never been on an airplane in my life.
This is why I like you already, Owen Michaels, because we have a lot of similarities. And people ask me all the time, do you want to go on a vacation? Do you want to travel? I'm like, no, I'm terrified to fly. I will not fly. I mean, you couldn't pay me at this point to fly.
I hate heights. I hate heights. I guess that's what I put it down to.
I don't know if, maybe. I'll get back to you on that. But I also wanted to ask you, for our worldwide audience listening here on Sportarium, because you seem like from such an early age, you knew you wanted to be a wrestler. So I got to ask you, what were some of your favorite wrestlers growing up?
I think the main guy that got me into it was the one and only Rey Mysterio. And personally, I'm not sure what hooked me about Rey. I don't know if I just liked the mask. I don't know what it was. I don't know if I just liked the way he was in the ring. But there was just that energy that drew me to him. And then obviously you've got the likes of Eddie Guerrero. You have Shawn Michaels. I'm a big fan of Booker T as well. But yeah, those wrestlers, they're the ones that really got me into wrestling. And hey, it goes without saying they're some of the biggest names in the history of wrestling.
Oh, absolutely. And listen, I go back with Rey Mysterio and Booker T. You're going to chuckle. And I'm not that old. So trust me, I'm not that old. But Booker T, I go back in my first memory of Booker T is actually the Best of 7, 1998 WCW for the television title between him and Chris Benoit. They had this Best out of 7 series. And if I recall correctly, I think in the States, I don't think I had ever seen anything like it. It was Booker T had just become a singles wrestler. He had just got off being a long-time tag team wrestler with Harlem Heat, his brother Stevie Ray, and he became a singles wrestler, and he had the Band-Aid above his nose, and he had the mustache and the short hair. You wouldn't recognize Booker T, but at that time, that was how he started out. He became a successful singles wrestler, and he had the Best of 7 with Chris Benoit, and every time Booker T wrestled in a match, they always went for his knee. For whatever reason, it was his left knee, if I recall correctly, that was always they would work on, whoever it was in a match. Then the other match I remember him most notably for was he actually beat Bret Hart clean in the middle of the ring in Nitro. This had to be, I want to say, about maybe February or March of 1999. And Booker T beat Bret Hart in the middle of the ring clean on Nitro. And then Rey Mysterio, in fact, I go back with Rey Mysterio again, not as far back as anybody else, but I actually remember when Rey Mysterio lost his mask in a match against Kevin Nash because Rey Mysterio actually beat Kevin Nash on Nitro in the middle of the ring. He rolled him up. It was one of the biggest upsets at the time in professional wrestling history. So Rey Mysterio, Eddie Guerrero especially, Eddie Guerrero was always one of the most entertaining wrestlers. I always enjoyed him going back as far as when he was the leader of the LWO, the Latino World Order, which today, I guess...
Latino World Order, yeah.
Yeah, I think the LWO would have been probably much bigger now than it would have been, let's say, 25 years ago, because at that time it was like an NWO. Yeah, it was an NWO knockoff. I think now it would have been massively built, but that was my memories of him. And Shawn Michaels, listen, Shawn Michaels is going to be a wrestler that you're going to talk about for 100 years, and you're probably related to him. So I got to ask you then about one of your.
I think he's like my 5th cousin removed or something like that.
Say the same thing. I thought, listen, I have to ask Shawn Michaels and Owen Michaels. I mean, you guys look alike almost to some extent. There must be something in the eyes. I don't know, but at least the younger Shawn Michaels. Not now where Shawn Michaels looks, I gotta be honest, without the long hair, it's still weird to me to see Shawn Michaels with a bald head and an NXT baseball cap. But I gotta ask you about something that maybe it's...
See, that's my biggest fear, Mr. Bryce. Sorry to cut you off there. It's my biggest fear going bald because I'd look like the alien from the Roswell incident. If I was to lose my hair, I just have to retire because.
Well, that makes
my biggest fear.
That makes 2 of us because as our worldwide audience listening on Sportarium knows, I have long hair myself, and I think our hair might be the same in length and look. So I certainly could sympathize and agree with you on that. That's why people have asked me, well, why don't you cut your hair? I'm like, I'm never cutting my hair because the minute I cut my hair, I'm probably going to lose my hair, and then I'm going to be bald, and then I'm going to have to get a wig. I don't know. Who knows? Who the hell knows? But obviously that's here nor there. But there was something else about your career that might have shaped into the person that you are today, and that you actually saw a pretty important match after WrestleMania. I believe it was WrestleMania 22, if I'm not mistaken correctly. And that was John Cena versus Edge. That was your first and early memories of attending a wrestling match. I mean, John Cena and Edge, I mean, you're talking about arguably 2 of the biggest names of our generation over the past 20 years. And you got to talk to me about that. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, wasn't that on John Cena's birthday? So for our worldwide worldwide audience listening here on Sportinarium,
Yes.
fill us in on the details.
Well, I'll let you know which show it was. It was actually a few years after WrestleMania 22. It was WrestleMania 25, just after John Cena won the World Heavyweight title against Edge and The Big Show. And they do WrestleMania revenge tours in the UK, or they used to, obviously. And it was in Newcastle, the O2 Arena, I think it was, 2009. It was a present for my birthday because my birthday is March 31st. So sometimes, if I was lucky, WrestleMania would even fall on my birthday. But I don't think it did that year, but I was allowed to go to Newcastle and watch that. And I think the whole show in general, it really cemented Owen Michaels in wanting to pursue a career in wrestling. And yeah, it was his birthday. It was because Edge, the nice guy that he is, he got us all to sing happy birthday to John Cena.
You have that recorded?
Possibly. I have a few photos, but I'm not sure. I think my mum might have recorded it. I'll have to ask her when we finish this meeting. But yeah, I possibly. I'll have to search for that.
That's interesting. Listen, wrestlers for anything don't sing happy birthday to you because it's almost like taboo. There's two things that I think for whatever reason wrestlers have bad luck on. The first thing, it's wrestling in your hometown and winning, and then getting wrestlers to acknowledge your birthday. I mean, John Cena, obviously. I mean, we're talking about like John Cena's up there with a handful of names when it comes to like all-time wrestling draws. We're talking Stone Cold, we're talking The Rock, we're talking Hogan. You want to throw in Brock Lesnar, that's fine. You want to throw in Ric Flair, and The Undertaker. That's about it. So the fact that it's John Cena, so I could certainly see why that was one of the reasons why Edge sang happy birthday to him. But I was also curious about this because you said something interesting a little while ago on social media, and I want to get your perspective on as to why you said this, but that you wished you started wrestling at 14 or 15 versus 19. Now, most wrestlers don't start their career anyway to train until they're, let's say, I don't know, 22, 23. I think Stone Cold in the A&E documentary had mentioned, I think he was 21, maybe even 22 when he thought about becoming a professional wrestler, and he didn't debut until he was 24. So DDP is another example. I think DDP didn't formally have his first match, I want to say, till he was like, believe it or not, 38 or 39. So, Owen, when you say something like that, I mean, got me wondering, why did you say that? I mean, talk to our worldwide audience about that.
I think, and I understand that it'll actually be a very a hard thing to understand, because saying, oh, I wish I didn't start at 19, I wish I started earlier. 19 is still very young, and I'm only 22 now. And like you said, if Stone Cold started at 22, then what's the issue? But you look at other wrestlers who started when they're 14 or 15. Personally, I feel like that's lost time to me. That's what, a 5-year difference. Yeah. So in that time, they can learn whatever they wanted to learn within wrestling. And I feel like whatever I was doing within those 5 years, I could have been doing differently. I could have been learning the craft of pro wrestling rather than, I don't even remember what I was doing. That shows to me that it wasn't time well spent. You know what I mean? And personally, I think it's the one thing that Owen Michaels is envious about in life. I am envious of people who started when they were 14 or 15, because I feel like they have a head start. And fair play to them. But I feel like if Owen Michaels started when he was 14 or 15, I would have skyrocketed, Mr. Bryce. Don't you agree?
Owen, I couldn't agree more. And on top of that, listen, Owen, I'm 33. So I wish that I started doing this at 14 or 15 because...
33. Mr. Bryce, you don't look a day over 27.
Actually, I've gotten that quite a bit, actually. So I have to say I've been blessed with good genes. Obviously, I've been blessed with father time, but I couldn't agree with you more because, listen, I look at it and I say to myself, gee, if I started doing this at 14 or 15, I'd probably be on BBC right now, but instead I'm on Sportinarium. But hey, listen, I'll settle for being on Sportinarium because, listen, I literally built this station when it comes to listenership. I literally built this station when it comes to the following it has. So listen, a rising tide lifts all boats, but we know that Owen Michaels is definitely that rising tide that lifts all boats.
And of course, and that's the thing. I'm sorry to cut you off again. Starting at 19, there is the pros to that as well. If I had started when I was 14 or 15, I'll be honest, I wasn't the most mature kid. Maybe I wouldn't have stuck to the beautiful world of pro wrestling. But starting at 19, I had a few more years under my belt, so I was a bit more mature. I understand more about what it takes to be a wrestler than I might have done when I was 14 or 15. So I think, even though I do regret it, I think it worked out well, even though I do have my regrets.
I think it definitely worked out well. And you can also look at it that way also because for me personally, I can tell you because I'm a little older than you, I'm not a lot older than you, but I don't really think that I honestly got a head on my shoulders until I'd say 28, 29 where I could say, hey, you know what? All right, I really want to do something. I really want to have an interest in something. So I think at 14 or 15, it's almost impossible. And again, we brought up the example of DDP. DDP was older than you and I were, and probably is older than you and I combined. And he didn't start and have his first match until he was 39. And he didn't have his first world title win until he was 42 years old, going on 43. I mean, if DDP could do it, there was another wrestler in the WWE a while back, and he retired. It was Rico, and he was with Billy and Chuck when they were a tag team. It was Billy Gunn and then Chuck Palumbo. And he didn't get into the ring until he was like 36 or 37 into OVW. Finn Finley's another example. I mean, so listen, I mean, you never know. So just because you didn't start at 14 or 15, that means nothing. I mean, listen, you're going to have a 50-year career. You're going to be like Ric Flair. You're going to be 71, 72, still in the ring. You're going to be winning world titles at 70. So listen, you got a 50-year career ahead of you.
Of course. And Mr. Bryce, I intend to be wrestling when I'm 100. I don't intend on stopping until God himself stops me.
If I'm not mistaken, wasn't there a wrestler that one of his last wishes was to be in the ring? I'm trying to think if it was Lou Thesz or there was somebody that actually, and don't quote me because I'm not a wrestling historian, but it was somebody that wrestled like 6 decades or something like that. It was in the 90s. I forget. Maybe it was Lou Thesz who actually had a match.
Possibly it was Dory Funk, perhaps.
Yeah,
he was like 80 years old when he was last in the ring.
I mean, the Funks are like, what, 800 at this point? I mean, Terry Funk, when I was a kid, Funk
definitely.
was old. Terry Funk has got to be about 75 now, 76, because he was old when they put the ECW title on. In fact, I remember when he was with the WWF. This has to be in like 98. Then he was in WCW, and he was old then. So, yeah, the Funk's got to be about 800, not 100. They got to be about 800 years old. But I know one thing. Ladies and gentlemen, these are reasons why we're excited to have on the Sports Report the #1 global sports show, and that is one of the hottest professional wrestlers around here in the UK, and that's Owen Michaels. As I am America's greatest export, the host of the Sports Report, the Reverend Tom Bryson. For more information on the Sports Report, you can go to sportsreportx.com and listen to all of our archives now. You can go to our YouTube page at the Sports Report, the #1 global sports show for sports report-related content. And as always, a huge shout-out to the entire team here at Sportinarium, including Lakey, Arv, Mitsu, Sean, who does a phenomenal job with the Sportinarium TV page. Richie, got to give Richie a huge shout-out. He's got his own YouTube page, Boxataglia. He just had on former World Heavyweight Champion Chris Bird, a huge wrestling fan, Steve Trengle, does a phenomenal job with the Eagles Nest show, Susie and Sasha, with the women's boxing news, and Sasha comes back with all that racket. Our old friend Mike Lipinski of the In the Fight show, Brandon Stubbs, Connor, Martin, Ryan, Dave, DJ Dale, who comes on before us, 80, who's a huge wrestling fan. It's a who's who of people here at Sportinarium. Cannot thank them enough. And you can follow Sportinarium on Twitter and Instagram at Sportinarium. You can like Sportinarium on Facebook at Sportinarium Media. And you can subscribe to the aforementioned Sportinarium YouTube page at Sportinarium TV. And most importantly, you can listen to the Sports Report Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays from 5 to 7 p.m. Eastern Time, 10 p.m. to 12 a.m. UK time on Sportinarium.com. That's from Friday to Sunday from 5 to 7 p.m. Eastern Time, 10 p.m. to 12 a.m. UK time on Sportinarium.com. And 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, you can listen to Sportinarium-related content. It's a who's who of shows, and I lost count, but I know one thing, ladies and gentlemen, it's the Sports Report is the show that built Sportinarium, and we are honored to be on the Sports Report with our guest here, and that is Owen Michaels, who is the Heartbreak Kid / the King of Hearts. He's probably sick of me of saying that, but when you have a first name like Owen, a last name like Michaels, automatically what comes to my mind is Owen Hart, who I watched wrestle as a kid, and Shawn Michaels, who I watched pretty much as I grew up my entire life. So obviously, you know that's going to be on our mind. And Owen Michaels is going to be one of the biggest names here in professional wrestling here very soon. And he's already established himself as a wrestler you are going to watch. You're going to want to watch for years and years to come. Owen, you got to talk to us for a worldwide audience listening here on Sportinarium about memories of your first match in January of 2019 for Target Pro Wrestling.
There we go. Going a trip down memory lane right now. Even though it wasn't too long ago, 2019, I feel like that's only, 2 years ago? Yeah. So, first match, I'm getting giddy thinking about it because it's bringing back so many good memories, Mr. Bryce. My first match was, it was a six-man tag match in, I think it was Morecambe, actually, and that involved me, Mr. Sammy Sparks, Damon Havoc, Tommy Oliver, and Ben Vicious. I'm sorry, I cannot remember the other person's name. I will try and remember and send him a DM saying that I didn't mean to leave him out, but personally, I can't remember. Yeah, it was exciting. It was weird, and especially debuting in front of a crowd like Morecambe, that was quite an experience. But yeah, it really cemented that feeling of wanting to do this as a career. And honestly, I have no regrets over it at all. It was one of the best moments in my life so far, obviously.
Well, until you get back in the ring next to win a world title, which we know is going to happen in the very
Of course.
I got to ask you this question also because you kept things in the family with your sister, and your sister did your artwork for you. I mean, that's got to be a pretty cool experience and an interesting one. I mean, talk to me about how that all happened.
Oh, well, there you go. It's like having my very own personal Picasso or Leonardo da Vinci in the family. I think she really captured my essence really well in that picture. Wouldn't you agree? I think, yeah, it was quite, it's weird. I never really think about it until you've mentioned it, Mr. Bryce, but it's kind of a surreal feeling that she was able to do that for me. She's a wonderful artist, I must say, even though I'm a bit biased because she is my sister. But yeah, having her capture my essence as Owen Michaels, it was a really cool experience, and I still use that as my profile picture today on my social media. Yeah, it's a really awesome experience, I must say.
We could certainly see why. And you said something else that's interesting, and I want to talk about it because you mentioned Morecambe. And obviously, I'm sure you're aware of at this point that we've talked quite a bit about Morecambe over the past several weeks here on the Sports Report and on Sportinarium. And Morecambe has a rich wrestling history. It has a long wrestling history. It has a who's who of people that have come out of Morecambe and wrestled in front of Morecambe. So that's a pretty big deal to have wrestled in Morecambe. So for our worldwide audience listening here on Sportinarium, talk to me about what it was like wrestling in Morecambe.
Morecambe is a very unique little seaside town in the north of England. It's the fans there have an energy about them that not many other places really do. It's they like to tell you whether they like you or not, and I love that. That's what you want in wrestling. You want to know who they like. You want to know who they don't like. And they didn't really like Owen Michaels when he was there, but how can I blame them? Because obviously it's just envy, isn't it, Mr. Bryce? Who wouldn't be envious of Owen Michaels and jealous? But Morecambe, it's a lovely town, and I think for a while now they've kind of wanted and kind of deserved a promotion to call their own, which they didn't have for a while because I think it was Alpha Omega that used to reside there, and then when that closed down, they didn't really have their own promotion. I think a few others, including Target Wrestling, run there, but yeah, they've managed to get their own now in OPW, and I think they'll be very excited when that finally comes to fruition and when they can finally get that first show going. I think that they're going to be very excited.
Absolutely, and it was a tremendous honor for us to be able to talk Odyssey Pro Wrestling on last week's show with the newly formed team of Born Ready and the Cumbrian Outlaw Rick Marcus, the Natural Born Fighter RP Davis, and
Indeed.
also Odyssey Pro Wrestling General Manager Ethan Edwards. And obviously, Odyssey Pro Wrestling has announced details for their first event, August 7th, set sail. So everybody's ready to set sail. We know that we are going to be setting sail come August 7th. So huge shout outs to everybody involved with Odyssey Pro Wrestling. But Owen, speaking of names that excites everybody, and speaking of names that I would arguably say is one of the most important figures in professional wrestling in the UK, is a guy named Chris Brooker. And Chris Brooker is somebody we've talked about. I lost count with how many different wrestlers here over the past 2 or 3 months. And I know that you have some experience in dealing with Mr. Chris Brooker, and I can clearly see why you've dealt with Mr. Brooker because your public speaking skills are as good as anybody's that we've had on here in quite a while. So talk about for our worldwide audience on
I'll try my best.
I could see that. I could definitely see that. But for our worldwide audience listening here on Sportinarium, talk about how much Chris Brooker has helped your career.
I think Mr. Brooker is such a cool individual, and he is an absolute fountain of knowledge who has helped not just me, but many others that you have also had on the Sports Report as well. And he's like a dictionary. I think that's the best way to put it. He thinks of all these words and ways to put things that make you think of stuff in a different light. He helps you take things from even just yourself, like even the way you do things in just daily life, and put a spin on it, just where you can take and really run with it and really delve into it and help your character character. And Mr. Brooker is, the best way I can put it, he is a complete asset to British wrestling in general. And anyone who hasn't actually spoken to Mr. Brooker yet, I really recommend getting in touch with him and possibly doing maybe a one-to-one session, a group session, or something like that, because you'll really be better off if you do, because he's such an awesome guy who's helped a lot.
Absolutely, no question about it. And there's something also that's important about being a professional wrestler. There's no question that being in the ring and honing your craft is important, but you have to be able also to speak on the mic, to be able to talk to the fans, to be able to talk to your fellow wrestlers.
Indeed.
Whether it's calling a match or whether it's addressing what a wrestler said about you, just overall communicating. So being a professional wrestler, a large part of it is also being able to cut a promo or do an interview. For our worldwide audience listening here in the sport area that's not familiar with that term, how important is that to be able to do those things in addition to being a wrestler?
Personally, I think it's becoming a lost art, really. I value it. I don't want to value it more over ring work, but if you think about it, if you can cut a decent promo, you are extending your career by another 10, 20 years. If you have a captivating character who can talk on the mic and get out emotion from the fans just by your words rather than your wrestling, you're going to succeed in wrestling in general. It doesn't matter how good the moves are. I think if you have a captivating character, you're going to be a step above the rest, because it really sets you out ahead of the crowd. Because look, I could put 10 guys on the line who can do all these flips and amazing moves, and I'm not saying Owen Michaels can't do it himself. Obviously I can. I'm the Prince of Perfect Owen Michaels. That's what I like to call myself, but I think people really need to take the time to really learn this art form of speaking. Even if it's just in a mirror speaking to yourself, you can really learn a lot, and it will really help add longevity to your career. And I hope that when we see people talk about people like Chris Brooker, who is helping people with that, I hope that they realize how much of a good asset it really is to wrestling. And I hope we see more of it, personally.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. And I always felt that two wrestlers, as examples of if they had better mic skills, probably would have went on and had even more success. And one of them was Charlie Haas. Charlie Haas was one of the best wrestlers, I want to say, of the 2000s, but really wasn't great on the mic. And then his tag team partner, who we have seen have some success again, was recently tag team champion as part of the Hurt Business alongside Cedric Alexander, was Shelton Benjamin. Because if you looked at Shelton Benjamin, I mean, here was a guy straight out of Central Casting. You looked at him and said, this guy should be a main eventer. He's a world champion. He wrestled with Brock Lesnar in college. I mean, his wrestling skills, frankly, are unmatched. And he still looks the same as he did when he debuted in the WWE, let's say 16 or 17 years ago. But he never quite...
Oh, of course. He's really found the fountain of youth.
Yeah, he's made the fountain of youth, but his career, in terms of where it went, it could have went even further. And I think it was because, honestly, the promo skills were lacking. So that's why I think it's really important that you have to do that. But speaking of people who do not lack at all when it comes to talking on the mic, and somebody that we've actually had here on the show on a couple of different occasions, and I'm sure that we will be speaking with him again, somebody that, somewhat well, I'd have to say, safe to say, and that's the guiding light, Isaiah Quinn. And for a worldwide audience listening here on Sportinarium, I mean, give us your thoughts and any memories that you have with the guiding light, Isaiah Quinn.
I am a firm believer in the guiding light, Isaiah Quinn. And like you said, he's really stepped up his game with self-promoting during this lockdown. I think better than anyone I've seen. Honestly, I think he could sell a glass of water to a drowning man. Really, he's really found this essence that he can put across through his videos. And I feel like everyone needs to just watch him and take a lesson, because what we've seen on social media, I think, is only just a snippet of what he's capable of. And honestly, the guiding light, Isaiah Quinn, will be an asset to any promotion in the country, I think. And I think we'll see that very soon, and when he's getting loads of booking around, because I think people are finally starting to realize just how good he really is. Personally, I haven't met him personally in person yet, which is a shame, but I'm sure we will down the road.
Oh, I'm sure that you will definitely meet Mr. Quinn. And Mr. Quinn, I have to say, is the only person I could think of that before he got into the ring, he had fans basically wanting to get him out and boo him. And they were, before he even touched his opponent, he was in a match, I want to say about 2.5 years ago. And for the first 3 or 4 minutes, he didn't even enter the ring. And the fans hate him. That's how well he did his job. This is somebody that we're going to watch for years and years to come. But there is somebody else that you've been in the ring with that a lot of people talk about in the UK, and that's Shady Natras. And this is somebody that we know is somebody that's going to be even more known than he already is. And what were your experiences in being in the ring with him, and how much did you learn from that?
Well, Mr. Shady Natras, one of my trainers, actually, he had my first ever singles match, and that was in Lockerbie, Scotland, for Target Wrestling. And I've learned a lot from Shady. He's really someone that he looks into the finer details of wrestling, and he can really help you just understand what it's all about. And really, I've had a lot of light bulb moments talking to Shady. Has really helped me understand more about who I am as a character, who I am as a wrestler, and stuff that I don't even necessarily have to do. Owen Michaels shouldn't have to cheat to win a match, and he helps me understand stuff like that. Being a bad guy in wrestling, I wouldn't say I'm a bad guy, but some people think I am. But a lot of people think bad guys have to cheat. They don't have to. Shady taught me that, and there's a lot of other little lessons like that he's really helped me with. And like you said, I think as soon as the lockdown in the UK is over, I think we're going to see a lot more of Shady, and not just Target Wrestling and Discovery Wrestling, where he's been more frequently. I think we're going to see him all over the UK, hopefully.
How important is that to learn from somebody like a Shady Natras who's had the success and who understands what to do and what not to do in the ring? Because it's different, and I continue to say this on the Sports Report over the past several months, so our worldwide audience listening here on Sport and Area understands it, because obviously we're different than, let's say, a wrestling podcast where only wrestling fans listen to. We have a lot of different fans of all walks of life, whether they're sports fans here in America, whether they're music fans, whether they're boxing fans, whether they're football fans here in the UK. But it's different to learn to be a professional wrestler versus being a boxer. We just had on Holly Bon Metal and L.E.L. Collis, and they're fighting on Fight TV, and the historic Let Battle Commence, the first ever all-female fight card here in Europe. But it's different than learning to be a boxer or learning to be a football player here in America, a basketball player and a baseball player. You really have to learn from somebody like a Shady Natras. It's almost like an apprenticeship. I mean, talk to me on how important that is to learn from somebody with that kind of experience.
But like you said, it's not like boxing, and no offense to the boxers, I don't envy them. I wouldn't want to get hit in such a pretty face such as my own. But I think when it comes to learning professional wrestling, there's so many different avenues and finer little details that people might go their whole career without even knowing about, because there's just so much. And I think when it comes to, like you said, learning from a guy like Shady, as soon as we lose these people that know all of these finer details, it might be gone forever. The more we see people come into wrestling who don't necessarily learn all of this stuff, and look, I understand not all of it is necessary. Like Shady could tell me something that I might not even agree with, but he's told me it, and that gives me a different perspective on how I view what I do in the ring. Now, I was talking about if we were to lose that in wrestling, it'll be hard to get it back. It's like a dying breed, I feel. I feel like in wrestling now, people are more about showing off what they can do rather than telling a emotional and compelling story in the ring. I could go into the ring and do 20 flips, but what have I really done? You know, I could, on the other hand, go out and do one move, but I could keep that move on for the duration it takes to do those 10 moves, and I've told a more compelling story. And I really feel like someone like Shady understands that, and he can teach you that. And I feel like more people should really try and learn from guys like that. And I'm not saying it's possible for everyone to do that, because not everyone has access to a guy like that, possibly at their training school. But definitely Shady himself, actually, he puts on Twitter, if you need any feedback or help with your movesets, stuff like that, get in touch with him. And I definitely recommend it, because he really will help. And I think it goes alongside people like Chris Brooker. If you get in touch with these people, you're going to be better off for it. And it really will show in the ring, because it helps you step out from the crowd, and people will notice, and people will be more excited to see you in the ring versus a guy who, and no offense, but doesn't necessarily tell a story with what they do. If you agree with what I'm saying, Mr. Bryce.
Absolutely. And that's why I brought it up and asked you your thoughts on it, because it's different, again, from learning another sport. Again, let's say like a boxing, where you learn from a trainer, you mimic the moves, you get a grasp of it. Okay, fine. Basketball players go to a basketball court, whether it's at a park, whether it's at a schoolyard, or if they're lucky enough, they have a backyard, right? They learn the moves. They go on TV and they see their favorite player and they dribble a certain way. That's fine. But with a professional wrestler, to me, it's almost like an apprenticeship. It's different than anything else. You have to learn to move a certain way. You have to be able to talk. There's a lot of psychology involved. It's totally different. That's why I've always, regardless of who's a bad guy and who's a good guy on this show, I've always had tremendous amounts of respect to all of the professional wrestlers that do it, like yourself included, because I think it's a lot different than anything else. I mean, listen, I was in politics, right? I worked for politicians and people that have run for office, and it's the same thing. It's all the same thing. Everybody's got the same idea, the same goal, whether they're party affiliation or the ideology. The campaigns are all the same. But being a professional wrestler, it's not the same at all. If what works for you doesn't work for somebody else. You have to essentially learn from an apprentice. I mean, listen, everybody that has the NXT facility, they're extremely lucky, because Shady Nattress didn't have the NXT facility where they could work in a multi-million-dollar warehouse facility and have all these wrestlers give them knowledge and be able to go out there and watch all these WWE people who all work now for NXT and tell them, hey, you got to do this, you got to do that. Here's what you're doing. It's not like that for 99% of the world to become a professional wrestler. That's why it's extremely important that you have the Shady Nattress in the world, and that's why we're extremely honored to have on here for a few more minutes. That is the Prince of Perfect. That is Owen Michaels, the Heartbreak Kid / the King of Hearts. It is an honor to have him here on the Sports Report. He is one of the hottest up-and-coming wrestlers here in the UK. He's one of the hottest free agents around in the world of professional wrestling. We're extremely excited to talk with him about his journey, all the great things that he's doing and going to continue to do. As I am the host of the Sports Report, the Reverend Tom Bryce, and we are talking with Owen Michaels and all things related to professional wrestling. Owen, I got to talk about one of the events that you were a part of before the pandemic and the lockdown, which was really important. It also talks about your time in PCW, was the Open Ring Show. For our worldwide audience listening here on Sportinarium, why was that important to your career?
I think the Open Ring shows are really cool because it gives these younger and less talents a platform to really show what they're capable of. And personally, I feel like I did that. And like you said, just before the pandemic hit, that's just typical, because Owen Michaels, he was able to show what he's capable of. And personally, I don't think it was a full showcase of what I'm capable of. I feel like I have a lot more to give, but then the pandemic hits and then here we are. But the Open Ring show is really cool. You get to meet new people. You get to experience a new crowd. It was in Preston, England, and that's a different crowd than I've ever witnessed before. Most of my shows have been around Cumbria and Southwest Scotland, so I got to visit a new place. I got to meet new awesome talent from different promotions, and it was really cool. There's not many promotions that do that. I have to really say thank you to PCW for giving me the opportunity to actually showcase what I'm capable of, and hopefully they actually do more shows such as that, because I will be the first person to sign up.
And we certainly can't wait to talk about that when you do sign up, so we're extremely excited about that. But you said something else interesting, and I want to talk about that before I get your closing thoughts and maybe a few moments that stand out most in your career, is that wrestling in different territories. We've talked with some wrestlers here, and they've wrestled in Scotland, they've wrestled in all across the UK, and we even had on a band the Superlatives, and the Superlatives played in Scotland, they played in Germany, they played all throughout the UK. And I'm wondering, as it relates to your career in the different places that you've gotten to wrestle, what's that mean to you, and what do you learn from those experiences?
I think it's very important to step outside of your own bubble and really experience what the world truly is, because being trained by Target Wrestling, we're from Carlisle in Cumbria, but that is Cumbria. I step outside of Cumbria, or even just Carlisle itself, I experience a completely different crowd. And I think that's very important to learn, because not everything works for the same crowd. Oh, Michaels could come out in Carlisle, get booed for whatever. I don't know why they boo me, Mr. Bryce. They just do. But it might not have the same effect in a Preston, or even somewhere in Scotland, or maybe even the United States. I feel like you need to go to these different places and truly learn what makes the crowd tick. And if you go to all these places and learn that, it's in your locker, you can bring it out if you're in need. And you see veterans say it themselves that, or even just looking back at the old territory days in the United States, someone would be a champion in the territory, he'd drop the belt, and then he'd go on to a different territory. He would experience somewhere else. And I feel like it's a very, very important thing that people should at least try and do. If they're comfortable in their own area, that is completely fine, because everyone does this to the same extent as other people. But I truly believe that if you can get outside of your own area and just experience different crowds and different environments, I feel like you'll really benefit from it.
Absolutely, no question about it. And I think that that's what made the territories so important in professional wrestling, especially here in the States, because you had Memphis, you had Dallas in the Texas area, you obviously had here in the Northeast, you
Mhm.
had New York, you had New Jersey, you had Pennsylvania, you obviously had, let's say, South Carolina, you had Kentucky, you had so many different places. You had the West Coast, obviously, with the Sportsplex in the old days, you had Minnesota with the AWA. What was important was that it gave wrestlers places to work, to hone their craft, to network. I think that's what's important about pro wrestling. And I feel in a lot of ways that in the UK, we're seeing that with the territories in the different places. When I hear about Morecambe, when I hear about
Mhm.
Barrow, when I hear about Manchester, when I hear about all these different places, and it reminds me so much that that's why I'm really excited for everybody to get back out there in the ring in the near and distant future. And we're not that far away. I know that some promotions have announced events as early July. So that's only a couple of months away from them. Obviously, we've seen the news with Odyssey in August. We've seen some other territories that have announced September. So I think that we're right there. So just got to hang in there a little more. And I wanted to ask you, for our worldwide audience listening here on Sportinary and Owen, on who are some of your favorite opponents that you've been in the ring with?
Ooh, well, that's a tough question, mainly because I feel like with every opponent I've had, I've learned a valuable lesson that I can then take on throughout my career. I'd say Martin Kirby probably be one. I faced him in, once again, Morecambe. Morecambe comes up quite a lot. I faced him in a triple threat match against Chris Kendall. Martin Kirby is a complete asset to British wrestling, and it's a shame that he retired, but hopefully maybe with a little bit of peer pressure, he might make a little return, hopefully in the future. But he's someone that I learned a lot from. Once again, I'd say Shady Natras is probably there, mainly just because of the little details that he can show me in how to be a different and stand out from the rest. And Sammy Sparks, I'll give him a little shout out. He's my little arch nemesis within Target Wrestling, a little wrestler from Dumfries, Scotland. And yeah, he's someone that I enjoy getting in the ring with just because he seems to be someone that I can really gel well with, and the chemistry's there, in my opinion.
What are your goals for 2021?
I'd say for the remainder of 2021, knowing like, what are we, halfway through the year nearly already by the time shows come back, I think I could say, oh, I want championships. I want to wrestle in all these different promotions. Hey, I'm still young. Those times will come, won't they, Mr. Bryce? I think when Owen Michaels gets back to wrestling, I think I'm going to enjoy it. You know, we talked earlier in this recording about how we don't really necessarily know what we have until it's gone. So I think for the first few shows when Owen Michaels gets back, he's really going to take it in and enjoy wrestling in general. And I think obviously after that, the time will come where Owen Michaels gets snatched up by all these other promotions and he starts winning championships. And I think the promotions themselves will enjoy that, obviously being a part of the story of the rise of Owen Michaels. But I think truly for the rest of 2021, Owen Michaels is going to enjoy wrestling, whether it be at Target Wrestling or somewhere else. I'm not against going to different areas. Like I said earlier, it's a great experience. But yeah, truly the main goal is just to enjoy wrestling and really getting underneath anyone's skin that I can as Owen Michaels, because let's face it, everyone's envious of Owen Michaels, so I've missed doing that, and I'm going to enjoy it very much when shows are back in the UK.
Well, you know, one thing that Owen Michaels, to quote the late great Stuart Scott, is as cool as the other side of the pillow, and he's so hot we can only hope to contain it. We can only hope that in 2021 we get to see him in the ring, and we know that'll happen very, very soon. But before we get your closing thoughts, I wanted to ask, because we've talked a lot about you returning to the ring. We've talked a lot about all the different opponents that you've had. It's a long list, and there's so many things we could talk about your career. But how much have you thought about that first moment that you're going to step in the ring? Because I think it's going to be different. I know we talked about WrestleMania 37, that first event, and what's that going to mean for everybody. But that first moment that music hits, and you get to step foot back in the ring with everything else that's going on. I mean, what is that going to mean to you?
I think it's not something that I've actually thought about until recently, because it's truly getting there. You know, it's starting to get closer and closer. And Owen Michaels isn't a nervous guy. Owen Michaels doesn't get anxiety going out to the ring. He knows how good he is. But I think for once I'm actually going to be nervous, just because, not nervous in a sense that I'm going to screw up, but nervous in a sense that I think, what's the best way, Mr. Bryce? I feel like it's nervous and anxiety in a sense of I just want it to get here quicker, if that makes any sense.
You want to get it over with. Yeah, you want to get it over with.
Yeah, you know what I mean? I just want to get that first match out of the way and then it's done. And then I can finally let loose. You know what I mean? But yeah, Owen Michaels, I never really thought about it until recently, because I'll be honest, when the pandemic happened, I kind of got bitter towards wrestling, mainly because I couldn't do it. Because Owen Michaels, he's someone that likes to take part. He doesn't like watching. Football or soccer, sorry, if in America. I prefer to play football, you know? I don't like watching. It's the same with wrestling. wrestling. Owen Michaels is I need to be in that ring. I don't like watching it. It's like watching WrestleMania. It's more of a drive and an envy, and it's soon coming back, and that's an exciting part of it, Mr. Bryce, and I can't wait until it's finally here.
Oh, absolutely. And we know it's going to come sooner rather than later. And that's why we're extremely excited to see the Prince of Perfect, Owen Michaels, back in the ring very, very
Indeed.
soon, coming to a wrestling territory in a wrestling company near you. And who knows where it'll be. Maybe it'll be WWE, maybe it'll be NXT, maybe it'll be Progress, maybe it'll be somewhere. I can't wait to talk with him about that and his return to the ring. And for you, my friend, I know that you've had a lot of moments in your career, but for our worldwide audience listening here on Sportinarium, I wanted to ask you if there was one or two moments that stand out most in your career so far.
Well, that's a good question. A question that is hard to answer, obviously, I think, because Owen Michaels, even in his very short career, has had so many moments that I should be proud of. I feel like truly getting onto the big Carlisle shows. Now, for anyone that doesn't know Untitled Wrestling, the Carlisle show is our pay-per-view, all the big matches happen there. I feel like finally being given the opportunity to wrestle on the big Carlisle show was a very proud moment in my career, and just being able to wrestle itself. I feel like not many people realize that you spend so much time dreaming as a kid being able to be a wrestler, and when it finally happens, you don't really realize that you are actually living your dream. And for me, that's a big part of it for me. I live my dream every day when I wrestle, and that for me is a proud moment in itself.
Ladies and gentlemen, a rising tide lifts all boats. And we know that Owen Michaels is going to be that rising tide that is going to lift us. And we're not too far away, ladies and gentlemen. Just got to hang in there a little more. And we know that the tide is here. The boat is going to lift us. And we know that Owen Michaels is going to be that rising tide that lifts all boats. And it's been a tremendous honor to speak with him about all the great things that he's done in his career and all the great things that he's going to do in his wrestling career. For you, my friend, I want to give you the floor. I want to give any closing thoughts. I also want you to plug all of your social media, whether it's Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, anything that you have, so we can keep up to date with all the great things that the Prince of Perfect, the Heartbreak Kid / the King of Hearts, Owen Michaels is going to do. And it's been a tremendous honor, my friend. I can't thank you enough. So I want to give you the floor. Any closing thoughts? Please share all of your social media so our worldwide audience keep up to date with you. And the floor is yours.
Well, first of all, I have to say thank you for having me on the Sportinarium on the Sports Report, the #1 wrestling sports show in the universe. You say the world, but it's the universe, Mr. Bryce. And really, I have to appreciate you giving me this platform, because people are finally going to see the greatness of Owen Michaels. And you talk about social media where people can find me. I'm on Twitter at Owen Michaels. I have Facebook, but Mr. Bryce, I will ask you another question. Sorry, I know you're giving me the floor, but do you use Facebook? I personally don't, because I feel like it's an old person's platform. I'm more of a Twitter guy. So
I can't stand Facebook. I think Facebook, it's all BS.
There we go.
And people listen, I only have Facebook just to post about the Sports Report, but I cannot stand Facebook. I like Twitter, but I really like Instagram a lot as well. Facebook, I could care less for, to be honest with you.
There you go. I need to get an Instagram, Mr. Bryce. I need to show off Owen Michaels from a different perspective on Instagram. That's one thing I will set up. But yeah, you can find me on Twitter. You can find me on Facebook, I guess. And then you'll be able to find me on Instagram very soon when I set one up, I guess. So, but yeah, thank you very much for having me on. It's been an absolute pleasure being on the Sportinarium Sports Report, Mr. Bryce. Thank you very, very much.
Absolutely. And TikTok is out there, but I don't have a TikTok, but I might want to watch Charlotte Flair's TikToks because I might want to see her long legs. So that's all I'm going to say about that. Obviously, Mr. Andrade is a very lucky man. That's all I'll say. But I will say, my friend, it's been tremendous honor. I cannot thank you enough for the opportunity. Anytime you want to come on and talk about anything else on your mind, you'll always have the floor here, especially at Sportinarium. And I'm looking forward to see your journey, and I can't wait to talk with you soon, and can't thank you enough.
Thank you very much, sir.
As we're here on the Sports Report, the #1 global sports show with the Prince of Perfect, and that is Owen Michaels. As I am America's greatest export, the host of the Sports Report, the Reverend Tom Bryce, and stay tuned for more hard-hitting analysis here on the Sports Report and Sportinarium, the #1 global radio station, as we were just with pro wrestling star and one of the hottest free agents around. That's Owen Michaels, the Prince of Perfect, the Heartbreak Kid / the King of Hearts. As I am the host of the Sports Report, the Reverend Tom Bryce, and stay tuned for more hard-hitting analysis here on the Sports Report, the #1 global sports show here on Sportinarium.